Welcome to the Painter Marketing Mastermind Podcast, a show created to help painting company owners build a thriving painting business that does well over $1 million in annual revenue. I'm your host, Brandon Pierpont, founder of Painter Marketing Pros and creator of the popular PCA educational series, Learn, Do, Grow, Marketing for Painters. In each episode, I'll be sharing proven tips, strategies, and processes from leading experts in the industry on how they found success in their painting business. We will be interviewing owners of the most successful painting companies in North America and learning from their experiences. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Painter Marketing Mastermind Podcast Industry Partners Series. We are talking with Tom Droste. He is the founder and CEO of Estimate Rocket. Many of you know Estimate Rocket. Many of you use Estimate Rocket. So I'm extremely honored and excited to be speaking with Tom today. Tom, what's going on, man?
Great to be here, Brandon. Busy as always, and but always looking forward to doing podcasts. It's nice to get out and talk to people.
I love it, man. So I guess if we could, I know the focus of today is really talking about how to break that $5 million barrier. It's not one that's talked about. The $1 million, right? The $1 million is super common. Sometimes if you're ultra aggressive, the 10 million, but there is a number in between those, and we're going to talk about it. But I'd love to initially, if we can just learn a little bit more about the Estimate Rocket story, how long you guys have been around, maybe kind of the origin, how it came about, all that stuff.
Sure. Well, just in general, Estimate Rocket's an end-to-end software solution that enables service contractors to run their businesses efficiently, saving them time and money, so they can focus not on technology, but on focusing on their customers and the work that they need to get done. We've been doing this for 7 years. Estimate Rocket is about 7 years old, and having a great time, and really enjoy working with our customers. Really enjoy the solutions that we're putting out there. It is really exciting to see our customers grow and using the product, and just growing in general, but even more satisfying when they're using your product. So it's been a really good, fun ride. And we've seen some of our folks go from 2 million or 1 million to 5 million to even higher. You know, it's not all of them, but certainly people are enjoying the ride, and hopefully we're giving them the right things that they need.
Yeah. I love that unique value proposition that's succinct. I find that's a challenging thing, to be able to give that sort of elevator pitch, and yours is very, very dialed in. We allow them to focus on what they do, and we handle the technology so they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. I've actually designed that based on conversations with our customers, because I never knew how to put that out there in a way that actually resonated with people. And in talking with our customers, they actually told us what the things were that really worked for them and helped them, and what it allowed them to do. I mean, at the end of the day, our tool is really an enabling tool. It's not magic. You still got to put in the work and do the hard work, but it's a tool that will, enable you to get a lot out of it, and help you grow your business.
So where did the idea for Estimate Rocket come from?
It's an interesting story. So we started out doing sort of one-off projects with customers when we first started the company, which was actually 12 years ago. And 2012, 11 years ago. And so we were just pretty much doing one-off, development projects for people that I knew from some consultants that I worked with that had customers that needed things. And one of them happened to be an estimating program for a concrete lifting company. So they sell if I can say the company, it's HMI company, great company, great people. And they were, they had a kind of a secret sauce of how to do the estimates, but they didn't have a vehicle to do it. They could tell you what the math was to use to figure out the materials that you needed, calculate it, but they didn't have a way to make that easy for people and to be out in the field doing it. So we built it. And at that time, all it did was estimating. And that's where we ended up with the Estimate Rocket name, which is a little short-sighted in the long view, but that's what happened. So anyway, we built that. That was used for a while. We went on and did a native a mobile app that all it did was estimates that turned into invoices, that turned into or work orders to invoices. Very, very limited. No connectivity to other multi-user or anything like that. But it actually took off pretty good. We were selling in the App Store for $1.99. We thought, woohoo, we made it now,
Made it.
Yeah. So talk about the journey, right?
Well, you sell enough of them, you have made it, but you got to sell quite a bit at $1.99.
Exactly. So we then looked at that. We looked at the need for connectivity to get, we needed it to be multi-user, and even the HMI app was really it was a native app on a tablet, only ran on a tablet. It was, specifically sized for a tablet. And we wrote a web app because that seemed like the way to go, and we could have the back end connectivity. And as soon as we did that, it kind of took off. It was serving an area that was very underserved at that time, for sure, probably still underserved, as indicated by the number of competitors that we have today versus what we had just 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, the space has really filled up. It's obviously a big need out there. So we just kept, adding the things that people need into the product to extend it from not just the estimating, but work scheduling, and all the way out to, collecting payments. And probably one of the best things we do is the way we report things. So I was a bean counter in a former life, or accountant, as most people would say. And so I have kind of a focus on the accounting integrity of what the system's producing. And it's definitely a different, way to look at things than a lot of, development houses do, because I have that background. So I'm all about the business purpose of it, and, getting out of it what you need to drive your company. And that really shows in what we do for reporting. So it's really kind of fun.
That's great, man. So how did you go from being an accountant to essentially owning a software business?
Well, it was sort of like leaping off a building. I was sitting in my office one day. Now, if I go on too long about this, just let me know. I'm sitting in my office one day as a staff accountant, and I had one of those epiphany moments where I looked out and I saw my boss's head, and my boss's boss's head, and my boss's 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 head, all lined up. And I looked at the guy at the end of the line. I said, "No way am I waiting that long." So I quit my solid job.
Is this a real story?
This is a real true story.
You saw the 3 guys in a line?
I swear, their heads lined up at a moment in time, right? It was. And it really did hit me.
The stars aligned. You're like, oh my God, that's a long path.
Honestly, they really did. And so I quit my rock solid job, working for an accounting firm, and had benefits, and it was, great job. I found out later, my father-in-law thought I was You
hopped in with the Sharks.
I did. My father-in-law thought I was a whack job for leaving this solid job, because I took a job at a computer store. Now, this was a long time ago. And yeah, I thought, okay, this is a segue into computers, and that's what I want to do. And I started meeting people who were coming in. I was doing training and setup and things, support for the customers that would come in. So I started listening to their problems, and I started helping them. I basically started consulting with them to help them solve their problems, right? Loved it. I mean, I was so jazzed on that. That job lasted about a year, and that's when I jumped off the cliff and started my own business. And we started out basically doing training, but the training all led to people needing customizations. And so, being a systems person, I don't want to do things just for one people. I want to do things that could expand and serve many, but with enough flexibility to satisfy them. And that's how we ended up here.
I love it, man. That's quite the journey. So let's kind of go in. I know you started with Estimate Rocket. It started essentially 11 years ago as a one-off software development program. It's sort of the true origin story. It's officially been started 7 years ago. Starting, you say sort of potentially misnaming it, maybe due to the potential that it had, Estimate Rocket, although, I'd argue a lot of times that really doesn't matter.
Right.
But let's get into the software today. And then I'm going to back up and we're going to go to, what we're actually going to talk about with growing to 5 million. But what does the software do if it's not just estimating?
So it does proposals. It does sales follow-up. Once you've created a proposal, it does messaging, two-way messaging with the clients. And then once the proposal gets set, and it does have automated follow-ups, it has sort of, I'll call them mini drip campaigns. So for each stage of the project, you can create a drip campaign. Some, like an appointment confirmation might only have one. It's just the appointment confirmation. Or some of our custom use them creatively, and they'll send out a drip that says, "Hey, here's what to expect when we get there. Here's the way to prep for it." So they can do that constant communications, and they automatically turn off when the project's moved. So it's really, it works very fluidly for them. So after you've closed the deal, you've got work scheduling of work. We know we need to put guys out in the field, set up what the tasks are that they're going to do, and provide them with some sort of a work order that they can work off of and know what exactly they're going to produce.
And Estimate Rocket does this, that sort of project management functionality.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Just built in as one of the steps in the project lifestyle. We call everything a project.
Okay.
Project starts when you get a lead, goes through the sales process, becomes a work order, goes through the work process, goes to the invoice process, and then it's completed.
Okay.
And then invoicing, payments, and best part of all is the reporting. So,
what's the reporting?
Just all of the pieces that we have, like the sales reports, closing ratio reports, profitability reporting, accountability reporting. So we do keep track of who the user was that owned the project, who sold the project, who worked the project. So we know, when we go to have a meeting, a project review meeting, we can sit there and go, okay, hey, let's get the estimator and the crew leader out here and let's talk through this, because something went wrong here. Was it a problem with the estimate? Was it a problem in the field? What exactly happened? So we have all those details and we know who participated, and it makes it really easy to have those conversations about, hey, let's talk about this and figure out what went wrong or what went right sometimes.
Yeah, I love that, man. So the reporting is something I've found that's lacking so often in software for us, for other marketing agencies. It's one of our big pointers is our real-time reporting, but people want that. People need that, and they need it to be easy. We're contractors, painting company. They're typically not, super technically proficient always. They're not running software companies. They're running a painting company.
Right.
How flexible is your reporting? What I like is, okay, you can actually assign the estimator to that project, right? The project manager.
Can
you sort of consolidate? So all of a sudden you can start to look at trends amongst, like, who are your more successful estimators, or who's running the more profitable project? Can you do stuff like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the project profitability report, you'll see whoever the participants were, and you can filter by, you can pick this supervisor and this estimator, or whatever combinations of those things that you want.
Talk about accountability, man.
Yeah, that's what's so beautiful. I mean, who it is, how long things took to progress. I mean, all the details and everything's in one place. So, you go to look at a project and you scroll down through the project and everything's there. The details of the scope of work and everything, any communications, emails, or messaging back and forth. It's just all in one spot. Makes it real super easy to keep track of.
Yeah, it's amazing. So you have the macro level where you can see some of your key team members, their ultimate performance over time, but then you also can drill down as far as you want to that micro level.
Yeah. Every report ultimately has a drill into a project.
Yeah. Excellent, man. So who do you serve?
We serve service contractors. Our core customer is probably 5 to 50 team members. We have some that have over 100 and have some that are smaller. What happens is what we do may be overkill for a single operator. There's a difficult thing. It'll work for them and it'll do great things for them, but they may not want to take the discipline to keep up with it. And then, they get to a certain stage, and I think, 5 is really a good entry level stage. Around 5 people on your team, you're capable of bringing in somewhere between $650 and $900,000 a year, depending upon how your pricing works and what kind of a market you're in. And that's where you start. You get over one or two people, you get to 5 people, you start needing to have that coordination factor that's kind of built in for scheduling people out and for the accountability.
Yeah, I love that.
Definitely a tipping point there.
Yeah, and you guys are serving service contractors, so you work with.
Yeah. Painting is certainly our biggest core group, but we also work with remodelers. We work with handymen. We work with a lot of people in the concrete. Obviously, we got started in concrete repair, but we work with foundation repair companies. Really, it's really designed around the service contractor model, which is, estimate what the heck you got to do and get a proposal in the customer's hands, schedule the jobs out, and get the right people on the job at the right time, and then get your invoices paid.
What does the train up look like? That do you guys have any sort of onboarding or training, or how does someone get comfortable using the software?
Yeah, we have. So from the moment you sign up, an onboarding specialist will reach out to you and schedule a meeting with you, 15-minute call, just to kind of set your expectations. We have chat through our site, no bots involved, pure like human beings answer. And we also have telephone, call them by telephone if you want to, or email certainly, but most people use the chat. And
telephone, who talks to people?
Yeah, I know. We do actually. There's some things that are quicker over the phone, but
yeah.
And our customers do seem to like the phone. I think it definitely is a service
rarity
contractor thing.
Nowadays.
It is. It absolutely is. Yeah. But it's important. I mean, there's some things I talk to the support team, and customer service is a really important thing to me. I think you have to provide real customer support to people. You have to give them the tools they need to be able to run the product. And I've always felt that way in terms of what we do. I've always been very service heavy in terms of what I've done in all of the software projects we've worked in. I think it's an important thing. We have a ton, we publish videos constantly. We publish these little 1-minute videos that are kind of how to do this, quick tip kind of things. Probably 100 videos that, explain the different processes in the program. We run weekly sessions called Collaboration Tuesdays, which basically are a session where we have a topic for the day, but it's mainly for people to ask questions and in a group scenario where they can, help each other, because we'll have people saying, oh, well, I did this way and they did that way. And really, I love that because it just gets everybody, together.
Yeah, and that continuing education component is so important too, because you're probably constantly updating, rolling out new features, things like that.
Yeah, totally. And it is hard. It's hard to get, we find people that have been using the system, they're big users in the system, and we'll be reviewing something with them in their account and realize, oh my God, they're using 20% of what's there for them. And most of it is really just knowing about it. It's like, oh God, you just hit that button and it starts the campaign or whatever it is. But not everyone is an explorer. And I think software in the old days was really easy to screw up. Like you could really hurt yourself bad without too much effort. It's really changed a lot. I mean, at least our tool, yes, you hit delete and you go to do something and it says, type the word delete to continue. By the way, you're deleting all these things and you still type in delete. Okay. Sorry, I can't help you. Yeah. But, whenever you see that in any application, don't do it unless you're really sure.
Yeah. It's giving you an opportunity to be sure.
Right.
About what you're doing. What's your revenue model? Is this a one-time purchase, annual subscription, monthly subscription? What does that look like? It's a
monthly subscription. We do it. Okay. There is an annual option as well. And it's tiered based on the number of users. So depending upon how many users you are, you can go to a higher tier and that'll give you more included users and a better per user price.
Got it. Okay. And so just to kind of make the numbers easy, this is probably a fit for painting contractors once they're close to maybe a little above $500,000 in annual
revenue.
5 teams.
Yeah. Okay. It's still cost effective when you've got one or two, but again, people at the one or two they're working so hard just to get the work done. They don't, they do the systems a little late. You want to start when you got 2 or 3, not when you're up to 10.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, ultimately, this is about systematizing and making your company efficient. So if you're an owner operator, if you're out there doing the estimate and the painting and the project management, there's really not so much to use this for. It's when you actually start building a team and a real true company, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, totally.
So I want to kind of back up for a second. So this is obviously a part of our industry partner series. So what that means is that Estimate Rocket is a vetted partner, a vetted, trusted industry partner, trusted by painter marketing pros. And one of the reasons, so we used to not ever have any vendors that we would talk with. We would strictly talk with painting companies doing over $1 million a year. That's how we really started the podcast. We've since branched out a bit. Now we're doing series and we have an industry partner series. The value that I have found, aside from just exposing people to good products and making their lives and companies better by doing that, is that you have experience with a lot of companies, right? So when we talk to one painting company, they typically have experience with one company. You as a vendor with a company that serves many painting companies, you can pull in, you can share data on a more aggregate level. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to let you kind of, however you want to lead this, I want to explain to people the path to 5 million.
All right, I'll do my best.
Not to put you on the spot, but also to put you on the spot.
No pressure at all.
Yeah, no pressure.
So it's more than one step. First of all, between you're going to find that every block that requires you to hire one or more people is another leap, and that's one of the things that you got to be prepared for. You're gonna, as you get up there, one person can probably do about 100K in revenues. And again, this all depends upon exactly the type of business you have, et cetera. But 2 people, 1 production, maybe 1 sales, maybe you can get up around 200K. 5 people, 6 people. But and the place I get these numbers, by the way, is we made this little Google Sheet tool that's really kind of cool. I call it the What If spreadsheet. And basically, it's
one up spreadsheet.
What if? Sorry.
Oh, the what if spreadsheet.
What if spreadsheet. Basically, there's like 7 or 8 variables, and how many people you got, what do you charge per hour, what's your average hourly cost, and a few more, right? And basically, you change any of those numbers, and it shows you, okay, this is your potential revenue. The other things it asks for is, do you give paid time off? How many weeks do you pay people for, and how many weeks do they work? Do they work for you?
This sounds like a fun tool. Like keep playing with it until you see 100 million, and then see if you can go higher.
Yeah, exactly. I made the columns really wide though, so you can't blow it up. But it's neat because you can, once you download it, it's yours. You get, you make basically your own copy in Google Sheets, so it's not, you're on your own, not nothing we're reading. But it's fun because I can pop things like this in there and say, yeah, okay, about this many people to make this much revenue. Anyway, back to the goal. So the couple of quick stats here: only 9% of U.S. businesses ever reach $1 million in revenue, and only 1% make it to 10 million. And I couldn't find a stat on 5 million, so I'm not sure exactly, but it's somewhere between that 9 and 1.
Yeah.
But the good news is that there's 33 million small businesses in the U.S. So that's really, 331,000 businesses make it to 10 million even. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. Yeah. The other quick idea is that to get to 1 million, in the 1 million vicinity, you're probably going to need around 10 people. Now, again, your mileage varies by, what your hourly rate is and, how you run things. But if you're selling hours, which is what most service contractors ultimately do, they sell materials too, but the materials are not generally a big cost item in what they do. If you sell hours, 10 people are going to yield you around $1 million. To get to 5 million, you're going to end up having somewhere around 40 people. So that gives you kind of an idea of that expansion. So you can see as you go through these phases, from 1 to 2 million, you're going to need closer to 20 people. And again, these numbers vary, but I hate calling out. I'm kind of a very detailed accounting type guy by nature. So I hate throwing out numbers and people go, oh, no, that's wrong. Well, yes, there are variables in there, but look at it's in the ballpark, 100,
Yeah, you're
100K this way.
qualifying it. Yeah.
Right. So what does it take to get to those different stages is the key. So I think the hardest one actually is your first hire. When you're at 100K and you're really crushing it, but you want to grow, you're limited. You can only go so far with one body. So you got to hire somebody, and that first hire is probably the hardest thing for most people to do, because it's a leap no matter what you do, right?
Yep.
So I always suggest that at that stage, what you need to do is you need to build your backlog. Building a backlog of work gives you a comfort level of saying, okay, I can do this. I've got enough work for the next 6 months. I know I can pay somebody else, and I know I can get even more business if I have that capacity. And steps like that are going to occur at each of these steps that you're going to go through. The next hardest one probably gets to be where you actually need to hire management people as opposed to just production people.
Yep.
So you get into that 5 people, between 5 and 10 people is where $1 million is actually. It's right in that range. And that's where you also probably need to add somebody in who is, pure overhead. They're just going to manage projects, or they're just going to do sales or something to that effect. And that's another difficult leap. But the other key that goes along with this is, as imagine you got one person, you add another person, that's pretty easy. That person has things to do, you have things to do. But the next step as you go through this process is delegation. And, there's a ton of business coaches out there that will, that teach this stuff in detail and how to get to each level. And the reason there's a lot of different business coaches is because they're all teaching at different levels, because there's different things that you actually have to do at each of the steps, at each of the, the hurdles, if you will. So, one of the next hurdles is hiring that overhead person, maybe your bookkeeper or your admin person. That's also one of the ones you probably should do earliest, because that's someone you can delegate a lot of things to free you up to do sales and to manage your team.
And that person can also help you to hire more production people.
Exactly.
You empower them to run essentially a recruiting funnel, because you should always be recruiting even when you don't need people, because then you're not in a desperate position.
Exactly. And you get a backlog of people that you can call on in the future. Maybe they're in the middle of something, but you like them, and they say, hey, call me again in 6 months. Who knows what's going to go on here, kind of thing. So absolutely.
Yeah. And you can be transparent and let people know, hey, we're not in a position right now, but we want to get you on a short list and see if you're interested. One of the things we did at Painter Marketing Pros fairly early on was hire a full-time recruiter, which is very abnormal for a marketing agency, but it allows us to have kind of the first pick of our talent pool. And I think it's something that painting companies should strongly consider, even though that's sort of an outside the box idea. What do you recommend? So these positions, especially the management, the overhead, that is a painful one. I can attest to. You hire them, all of a sudden, man, I'm making less money right now. What that was stupid, right? You're betting on the growth when you do something like that. But what do you, I guess I have a few questions for you. Number one, how or what advice do you have for finding good people? Because obviously that's a pain point. Even painters or really any good people, the common refrain is, there's no good people out there. What would your response or advice be for that?
Well, again, there's another one that depends upon your stage. As you get bigger, I strongly suggest that you create a growth and training program and start training people coming out of tech schools. It opens up your options to looking in other places. I remember going down to visit a customer in New York City. They're a masonry company. And when I walked into the office at dark 30, and it was literally still dark, and the group's getting set up for the day, and I walk into the kind of the downstairs, and there's this big open room with a bunch of half block walls everywhere. And I said, Sal, what exactly is that? He says, this is our training facility. This is where we grow masons and actually teach them how to do the masonry work. So again, that's a longer play. Obviously, that's something you can do more easily as you grow, but it's definitely something to keep in your back pocket. Other than that, I have to tell you, I have not hired in that area personally. So my hires have been generally through recruiting or through people I know that, relationships I've established. But that's kind of if you're any sort of a networking person and you know people, it's really a matter of putting it out there and asking. If you're in that early stage and you need one person or are trying to find a key person, ask your friends. They don't even have to be in the business. Just say, hey, do you know anybody who you think might want to be worthwhile to ask if they want a career in painting? I mean,
Yeah.
that networking thing really works, especially if you're good at it.
Yeah. No, I love that. And even though you don't have maybe extensive experience recruiting people directly for a painting company, I think your points,
Right.
The growth training program, obviously it opens you up to recruiting non-painters, recruiting people not from the space, which opens up the wide talent pool for you.
Right.
But what it also does is having a program like that, or even maybe something beyond that, as people grow within the company, it attracts talent. Because what you don't want is, hey, why should you work for my company? Well, because I'll give you $25 an hour, or I'll give you $20 an hour. You have the ability to go up $30 an hour. That's attractive to a point, but only to a point. And when you're looking for true rock stars, for truly driven people in their career, that is not enough. Nope. You have to give people the opportunity. You have to show them the vision for the future for themselves and their family and their career.
Right. Yeah, I've been super impressed actually with, especially in the painting industry. And I think honestly, the PCA plays a huge part in this at what they're doing in terms of elevating the trade. I talk to a lot of painting contractors that really have serious programs for recruiting and training and HR. Basically, they may not have HR people, but they got a full HR package of, hey, this is your growth pattern. This is what you can expect as you go up levels in your skills. I mean, and like you said, that for people who are looking for a place to be and to be a part of, that's really important, knowing that they can actually grow. Because I think too many of the trades have the reputation of an old school. Oh, you're just going to go there and you're going to use you as a tool, and you're not going to have any opportunities to grow or turn it into a career. And I think that's changed a lot.
Yeah, and the PCA is doing a phenomenal job of that. They're having more and more events. There's a craftsmanship forum coming up. There's a Women in Paint in November. There's a commercial painting meeting in November. There's actually a Spanish event I'm going to next month, September 29th.
Yeah. I was talking to Orlando about that the other day.
Were you? Yeah. So I'm gonna go see try to brush up on the old Espanol and see what kind of damage I can do there. But it's an outreach to the Hispanic community, pulling them in.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, the idea of providing people a growth opportunity, something we do at Painter Marketing Pros, which I strongly recommend painting companies do, is when you're talking to someone, figure out what do they want for their life, what do they want for the future, and can you provide it? So even if you hire them as a painter, you'll find some people are very interested in business, or they want the opportunity to manage a team one day. Or maybe they want the opportunity to learn to sell, even though they're not an estimator. Is there, for their vision, what they're passionate about, is there a path in your company for them to get there? Because if there's not, you probably shouldn't hire them for any role.
Right. Absolutely.
Or you should empower them to basically it's a two-way hire. You don't hire them, they hire you too, right? It's a two-way hire.
It's got to work both ways for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about, from the 0 to 5, we talked about the personnel numbers. Yeah. Essentially, when I think you said basically when you're nearing $1 million, you probably need to add an overhead type position, and probably would have been smart to add it maybe earlier, maybe around $500,000. Someone to take over a lot of that stuff. So aside from hiring, and getting to that maybe 40 number, so to have a $5 million company, what other things they could do, whether maybe that's sales or marketing or positioning? Sure. What else should they be focused on?
I think they should, most of them are going to be in the early stages. They're the salesperson. They're probably good at sales, or they wouldn't have gotten to that point where they're growing. Sure. Not necessarily going to be the be all end all forever, but they're probably good at that. I think what they need is marketing, because and marketing at any stage can be done in many ways.
They need to hire Painter Marketing Pros, Tom.
That's exactly. Absolutely. I mean, but even in the early stages, and part of that is having like processes and systems too are really important, right? Because in the early stages, it may be, hey, you guys need to, when you're in a neighborhood, you got to go do door hangers and all the neighbors, little things like that
canvas that neighborhood right around your
add up
projects.
huge. Yeah. I was speaking with Brandon Lewis recently, and he's a big proponent of that, and I think that's a really important thing. There's a lot of little things you can do, and I will freely admit I am not a marketer.
Yeah.
That's just not my bag. And so I miss some of those, guerrilla nuance things that you can do at an early stage that are super simple and they're super inexpensive. That will, may get you more business than you want, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think the SOPs and the processes are super important. I'm going to loop back to that in a second, but this idea, I think there's a bigger idea that you were mentioning here. So you're saying, when you go out and do a project, pepper the neighborhood, right? Your van, hopefully it's a wrap van or is already there. You can get a yard sign. I hope to God you got a yard sign, right? Hopefully even if you're using subcontractors, hopefully they're wearing shirts with your company's logo and name on it.
Right.
Branding, so you have that going on, but the bigger focus here is further monetizing what you already have. And that's, you already have a position, a presence in that neighborhood. There doesn't take much to monetize it, right? You could even do door knocking on the, you could do direct mail even to those immediate houses. You have a past customer list. You have a past prospective customer list. People think, well, they didn't close and, and I followed up with them for a week and they didn't close. Maybe they didn't close with anyone, right? You put them in a campaign or Estimate Rocket. I know as campaigns, you put them in something, you drip it out for the next year. You might land them 6 months or a year, and it took you absolutely zero effort except for setting it up in the first place. So monetizing, fully capitalizing on the opportunities and the assets your business already has will help you, especially when you're starting out.
100%. Yeah. It's kind of funny because when we first set up our follow-up campaign, we go from like 7 days, 14 days, 21 days,
7 years,
30 days, and then no, actually 1 year, 300.
That's what we do. We do it
40 days or something like that. And I've had people call and say, this guy just called in. It was they didn't even know it was going out in a year, right? But
they'll do it because they'll be. I mean, how many? So you got maybe, especially let's just hypothetically say it's through Angie, right, or one of these lead aggregators, and so that they've sent it to 5 people, sent it to 30 people. Who knows how many Angie sent it to at this point? But we're sending it to all these people, and so of course, it's highly competitive. If you put them in a campaign like that and you reach out to them in a year, I can almost promise you that no one else is. So if they didn't close, you're the last man standing.
Absolutely.
And if they decide to move forward at that point, people's lives change. Sometimes they're really not serious. Sometimes something happens, set them back. And then 6 months, a year from now, they're like, you know what? Yeah, now is actually a much better time. Thank you for reaching out. I didn't think you were going to remember. You didn't remember. Your automation remembered.
You remembered to set up the automation.
You remembered to do it. Yeah. Planning. I don't know. Whatever that's saying. Failing to plan is
failing to plan is planning to fail.
Yeah. You didn't do that. You planned. All right.
It's classic.
So you are accounting, you are now software, you're very detail oriented. So I think you're gonna have some good stuff here. SOPs, processes. This is hard for a lot of people.
Really hard.
Recommendations do you have for people who maybe don't feel like they have dialed in processes?
So in the simplest sense, a process is an outline of the things you do. So you literally need to sit down, and you don't have to have the greatest processes in the world. Good processes come from a bad process that you started with. So, but you need processes for things that are done repeatedly, for things that you're likely to delegate. And again, this is one of those things when you're the only person, you are the process. But as soon as you start hiring people, there are these little things that don't get done all the time, that if you don't have a process for them, then every time they need to get done, someone's got to go, hey, how do you do that? And you need to stop what you're doing and go explain that to them again. I'm a member of a thing called SaaS Academy, which is training or mentorship for SaaS business owners. And one of the greatest things I've heard is the video process recording. So you basically sit down, even if you don't like to write, you sit down with your, or have your phone and you walk around, whatever you're doing, and you basically just video and narrate what it is you're doing. That is a modern day process recording. Now, should it have some text around it ultimately? Yeah, but as a starting point, just having little videos about the different things you can do can go a long way to help people know, oh, hey, here's this video on it. Yeah, you want to know how to do that? Here's a video on it. Here's another video on it that explains the steps. I mean, that works also for sending people out to jobs too. Certainly video is a super powerful tool.
Yeah, 100%. So that's something. So at Painter Marketing Pros, we have something called a knowledge base. So there are common questions, there are common issues, there are common things that arise. And if we have a new team member, they might not know the answer to that, but they can go in and reference it. So every time you have any objection, every time you have an issue on site, every time you have any kind of issue, that should be recorded for the future. So it's never a brand new thing again. People can always, it's like an encyclopedia of your company.
Sure. It's huge. Any company that's growing and succeeding has something of that effect, right? So it has some sort of a knowledge base with both, basically processes, how to do this thing or how to do that thing, or how we work together, how we talk together, how a project flows, whatever it is. But again, it's just an outline of the steps. That's the fundamental piece of a process. Yeah. And even if you just get that part of it done, even if it's not overly elaborated, it's still better than not having anything, than having it in your brain and no one, no one can get in there without you being there.
Yeah, it causes you to be the bottleneck. And we record. So that's one of the things I did when I was kind of starting to build a team. I'd record all the videos of how I did it, and then I would send it. And I had someone else essentially in our CRM. We use ClickUp now, where they would basically break it up. They would add text to it, and then they would chop the video, and then there'd be little segments of video with accompanying text. And painting companies can either have an admin do something like this, or they could go to Fiverr, FIVERR.com. Outsource. You can use outsource talent in places like the Philippines and other countries to actually do this for you for relatively cheap. Again, taking advantage of the opportunities of globalization, the technology, Estimate Rocket, everything that we have access to that we didn't used to have access to.
Yeah, you have to do it.
So what is
there's so many good tools out there for that type of process creation now. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I want to address something else, Tom, too. You said you're a member of a SaaS Academy, and that you're receiving training and mentorship. So continuing education, investing in yourself, investing in the PCA, investing in the stuff. Never be too proud, too big, too smart to invest into learning. You have to
keep doing it. You have to get. There's two big reasons for me. One is you need to be learning. If you're not learning, you're not growing, you're dying.
Getting better, you're getting worse, man, every day.
Exactly. And the other reason for those types of things is you need some, you need peer, reinforcement. Like,
it's a lonely world otherwise.
Yeah, as a business owner, it is a lonely world, and it's rewarding, and I love it, but without other people to listen to and hear, you think you're the worst thing in the world.
You're the only one who has all these fires and has all these customer complaints.
Or you think you're the best thing in the world, and one way or the other. Yeah, you need it, and it is so healthy, and you learn about what other people are doing for their systems and processes, and I can't overemphasize how important those are, that being in some sort of continuing education group, it's just really invaluable. And you meet people that can become your group. You make friendships at those events, and then those become people that you can really bounce things off of. And that is invaluable too, to have that, uninterested third party. It's not your wife. It's not one of the people that work for you. It's just somebody who really is going to tell you, hey, you're a schmuck, or they're going to say, hey, I think you're on the right track. Don't be thinking you're not, going in the right direction. It really helps.
Yeah, I love it, man. So what would there's SOPs, processes, they're not, people overcomplicate them. If it's you doing it, just write down and record what you're doing. Boom, you have an SOP, right? Yeah. What is, obviously it's something that can be iterated on. You said it might not even be a good one, but just
Right.
write it down, then you have a starting point. What's your SOP or your process for improving your SOPs and processes?
I think for me, it's, in our company, it's kind of hey, if you read it and it's terrible and it doesn't really fit what's going on anymore, then you should update it,
Right.
take the time to update it to what's new. Because let's face it, there are some things that when you don't have a process and you want to get the process down, you create it. And it may be something that's a really core process. And nobody may ever look at that again because everybody does it every single day.
Sure.
A lot of the time, the processes you need for things that happen occasionally that you forget, oh God, how did we do that thing, right? But having those processes, the core processes, you probably should have a review process for those that says, hey, once a quarter, once a year, at some point, we're going to review those and see, are there new steps? Have we changed how we do that? Should we change how we do that?
That's
especially
smart.
for your
Reviewing
core
everything.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah. You go to your table of contents.
Maybe they added software, maybe they took on Estimate Rocket because they got big enough. Well, that's probably going to change quite a few things.
A lot of processes for sure. Yeah.
I like that. I like that regular review. I mean, that applies to a lot of aspects of business, but that's so rarely done.
Oh, I know.
We usually wait till something breaks. And they're like, oh no. Right.
What did the process say on that? Why is that not working?
Why did that happen? And then it's this reactive, retroactive thing as opposed to getting ahead of it.
Yeah. I do think there's good opportunities to, if you see something, say something kind of thing where, hey, this isn't the way by the way, that old process, that's nothing like what we do this now. Can I update that, or should we update that? And I think that part of it can help, because it is tough to review every single, if you do develop a whole ton of processes, which is good, you need to look at them and throw out the ones that are irrelevant anymore. Because like you said, if you bought a new piece of software, or you hired Painter Marketing Pros to take over the marketing stuff, you don't necessarily need that process becomes different. There's just one word in it, Painter Marketing Pros, instead of like 30-page book of what your process is.
So how do you delegate, the updating, or who decides what processes? How do you delegate that to your team, or should the owner do all that?
Oh no, that should definitely be delegated to the team, and probably whoever, and again, depending upon your size, delegated initially to whoever that team leader is that's responsible for that area, and review it with them. And that can be that can be a healthy process once you get into it. And it's going to start out with something like, hey, let's go look at a couple of the processes, and they go through them and they're all out of whack. And you say, hey, you know what? We really need to do some work on these. Let's chip away at one a week or whatever to get through this until we've looked at them all and thrown out the ones that don't matter and improved the ones that do matter.
Yeah. So kind of backing up a little more macro here, back to the theme of going to 5 million, we're basically assuming that the company knows how to sell, because they're in this range, they're making sales.
Right.
So then we need to hire. So we need to come up with a consistent mechanism. So a recruiting funnel, potentially even having someone full-time, or at least that's a main core component of their job doing that. We need to layer on SOPs and processes and things. A lot of things will start to break pretty fast if you get to a certain point and you haven't done that. And then we need to market. So we need to get good at marketing, because that's really, people say, well, I get 80% of my business from repeat referral. Well, maybe that works at 500,000. It might not work at 5 million, right? You have to reach what's called sort of a cold audience. You have to expand your reach. Is there anything that I'm missing, like big topic wise, to get to 5 million?
No, I think we've covered most of the ground there. I mean, I think over probably at about 1.5 million to 2, you are going to need, you're probably going to need sales assistants, because you're not going to be able to sell it all anymore. Sure. And I don't know if we touched on that, but that is going to be a really, especially in service contracting, that is going to be an area that requires the processes to have been defined, and in many cases systematized, because however you're doing your estimates, conveying that, depending upon what you're using for system, is going to be difficult to a new person that you may have to train doing it. And I know that's a fear for a lot of our customers, is they come in and, they're like, oh, I don't want to learn this. Well, but if you don't learn this, you're never going to be able to get someone to or set up a process for it, you're never going to be able to get someone else to go out and do estimates and sell for you, because they're not going to be you. You've already got however many years you've got in the industry and in the business.
Yeah. And
So
one of the
that's a
things
tricky one.
you kind of have to accept, or a mental shift you have to make, because we as business owners, especially when we're growing something, we think no one can do it as good as us. Right. Or like no one's going to be able to sell it. Well, I understand this company is so much better than anyone. And that may be the case. Yeah. But what you have to get good at, a mental shift that you need to make is, well, maybe you're not very good at actually building the team and actually running the company. Maybe you're good at doing a company, but you might not be good at running a company. And do you want to do a company, or do you want to run a company? Because if you suck at running a company, you're going to have to go ahead and accept that and then learn to get good at it.
Yeah.
And it's true. It is a shift. And some of your metrics might get hurt. Maybe your close rate does suffer. Maybe it's 30, but you kind of have to accept that so you can actually scale past that sort of breaking point where you can't do it all anymore.
Right. Yeah. I personally love programming. If I could, I do nothing but that. But I can't, because my skills are, elsewhere. I was good at that, but I'm also good at systems and helping people grow, and managing the company and seeing it grow is like the most fun thing you can do.
Yeah. Well, and you're on this podcast right now. You're not programming, right?
Exactly.
You're spreading the brand, you're spreading your knowledge, and it's something you're doing for the company.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Tom, this has been incredible. We're coming to near the end of it. I want to, well, you know what? Actually, let me back up. I had a question for you. I'm really glad I remembered. So you've seen some companies, again, you have a larger sample size than most. So you've seen some companies really grow, and you've seen some not as much. Yeah. Are there any trends that you've noticed with the ones that grow versus the ones that don't?
Well, I can say that the ones that, from our perspective, the ones that are growing the most are actually utilizing the most features in the system. I won't say probably nobody using everything, but they're the people that take the time to learn the systems and understand how they work and embrace them. And there are a lot of customers that use our system not in the way it was meant to be used, and it probably is aggravating as hell for them to use it in the way they're doing it. And I think so that gets back to being in some sort of a continuing education, reading self-improvement books. Somebody said the other day, one of his 5 non-negotiables every single day is read at least 10 pages in a self-help or self-improvement book. And actually at 10 pages a day, it really goes pretty quick. So, but it's a really critical thing. You've got to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And I think obviously Estimate Rocket is good software. It helps. Using it is going to help your business. But I think there's sort of this cause and effect, chicken and the egg kind of thing, right? You hear people promote at events or say, people who participate in our program see 30% bigger sales than people who don't, right? Or people come to the event, but the real underlying sort of bigger cause, I would say, is that the people who implement Estimate Rocket, implement the features, are embracing technology and change in general and leaning into it. So that propensity to be forward thinking, to use the tools that are accessible to you, is ultimately those people win in the long run.
Absolutely. You have to, it's like, if you didn't, how would you paint a house without a paintbrush? And if you're going to paint it, are you going to use the right brush, or are you going to use a terrible brush? There's tools are everywhere, and software is a tool. Process is a tool. All these things are tools. If you're not going to use the appropriate tools or the best tools for the job, then you're going to have a harder job to do.
Yeah. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage from somebody who is.
For sure.
Tom, is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up this episode?
That was a great conversation, and I truly love getting into the weeds on some of these things, because it's important, and even I learn a lot every time I do one of these podcasts about myself, and always learn something new. So,
Tom, are you on Facebook?
I am. I don't. Okay. I'm not a big Facebook guy though.
Well, I'm adding you to the group. So we have a Painter Marketing Mastermind Podcast forum on Facebook. I'm going to add you to it. So
awesome.
people will be able to tag you and ask you
Sure.
questions directly if they have anything. So you need to start checking your Facebook a little bit, Tom.
I will.
Is there another way that they can contact you if someone wants to email you or anything like that?
Sure. Tom@estimaterocket.com.
Okay. Tom@estimaterocket.com.
Yeah.
Okay. So tag them in the Facebook group, but if you don't want to, you can also email them. Tom@estimaterocket.com.
I do check it probably once a day. So.
Okay. Well, that's fair
Cool.
amount. All right, Tom, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for the time.
My pleasure. Likewise.
If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Hey there, painting company owners. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us your feedback. Let us know how we did. And also, if you're interested in taking your painting business to the next level, make sure you visit the Painter Marketing Pros website at paintermarketingpros.com to learn more about our services. You can also reach out to me directly by emailing me at brandon@paintermarketingpros.com, and I can give you personalized advice on growing your painting business. Until next time, keep growing.